The ROG Ally is not even out yet, but this has been the topic of discussion across multiple channels or pages that cover handhelds or PC handhelds or just gaming in general. Obviously, people want to know the price and the specs. I also want to know those things too, don't get me wrong. But I was focused on something that caught my eye that I feel like should be talked about as far as just, I don't know, it's just something I had on my mind, right? I've used my Steam Deck on Windows 11 since pretty much the moment I've got it. I've gone through 2 Steam Decks. I've reinstalled it even on the one that replaced my old one. I have no issues running Windows on this thing. It's a much better experience than most people think, and the Steam Deck actually facilitates that versus other handhelds. I know there's a lot of other Windows handhelds and people tell me, why don't you use this or why don't you use that? Well, it's because I don't have issues running Windows on my Steam Deck. I've never had issues with it. As far as drivers go, the drivers are there. Audio, everything that I need, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, everything works that is provided on the Steam resource page for Windows. In everyday use, I've had no issues like that. Any games you see on the channel, they're running pretty much just fine on Windows. Steam OS overlay, when you see that on my channel, it's overlaid on top of Windows. There's just no issues with playing games, and the main reason I have Windows on my deck is because I like to play games that aren't supported on Steam OS. And I have nothing against people that use Steam OS, but there's a lot of people attacking from that side or from just the outside looking in perspective that don't really know what it feels like to use their handheld device as a Windows computer or as a Windows handheld in this case, and it's misjudged a lot. I can honestly say after using this for a year, the Steam Deck is a better Windows handheld than other Windows actual handhelds. That's how I feel. That's how strongly I feel about this. But there is something that makes this so good as far as like utility and navigating and just being able to use your Steam Deck. And I want to address that because a lot of people think that it's not comfortable to use for some reason or that it's too small and things like that, right? When they revealed the ROG Ally, I was like, awesome, an actual Windows 11 handheld that will be the closest thing to mainstream that we're going to get because it's going to be in stores, right? I've seen the argument that having a handheld with Windows 11 installed on it isn't the best way to experience a handheld for the first time. And although I do agree that there are probably simpler ways to introduce people to handheld gaming like SteamOS, I believe it is a simple, straightforward, kind of easy to understand OS. People just know how to use it as soon as they get on it. But I also feel like there's a strong, crowd of people that are PC already, like PC people already. They already play PC games. They already have a Windows computer. And like I said in my last video, I think seeing a familiar OS will facilitate the experience for them on a handheld. They will know how to do a lot of things without going out of their way to figure those things out. Although for certain things, they will have to figure things out, just like I have with the Steam Deck, even though it is, even though this is pretty much at its peak of Windows comfortability right now, there were things I needed to figure out as far as like drivers and just pretty much getting everything set up. But the difference is the ROG Ally will already be set up from the start. It's already going to have Windows on there. You might have to figure out some things in certain games to get them to run a certain way or to get certain controller support. But that's something I've grown to like understand and get around. And I think that knowledge will carry over to whatever handheld I move on to after the Steam Deck. I see a lot of people say, how do you type into that thing? How do you have a keyboard on there? Well, it's simple. There are settings that facilitate the user experience by giving you the tools you need to experience this in the best way possible on a handheld device. First thing I'd like to point out, yes, the Steam Deck is touchscreen. The ROG Ally, I'm assuming, is also touchscreen. And that alone will give people, an easier time clicking on things. You can make icons bigger on Windows so that they're easier to touch. And going into the Steam Deck with Windows, I thought the same thing. I'm going to make all my icons bigger. I'm going to use this as pretty much a touchscreen device. But there was one thing I was so wrong about or didn't see coming, and that was the beauty, the greatness of the Steam Deck's trackpads. I don't see many handhelds, or if any handhelds other than the Steam Deck, really implementing an actual, trackpad. It's like the perfect size for your thumb to be on it. The travel distance is easy. Like you're not going off of it. Like it's just so easy to use the trackpad in comparison to clicking everything on the screen, and that's something that goes extremely unnoticed when people talk about Windows on the Steam Deck. I'm going to go as far as to say that the biggest bummer when they revealed the ROG Ally as a Windows, handheld, was that it didn't have some sort of trackpad. And I've used the right stick as a mouse cursor, and I don't like it as much as using the trackpad. And with its absence, I'm not saying that this is going to really affect how you play your games, because in terms of gaming, I don't really like using the trackpad when it comes to like shooters or third-person games, or sometimes I'll use it, but it's not something I take advantage of in every single game or in every single like circumstance. It's not something that I miss when it's not being used in a game, but I feel like I'd miss it when navigating the actual like desktop, the actual Windows operating system. It's so useful. I use the right one to pretty much navigate with the mouse cursor, and then the left one comes in handy when you got lists and you just like swipe up and the screen goes up or down. You know what I mean? You can scroll through things like if it was a mouse wheel pretty much with the trackpads. And they're just like in the perfect spot where you're going to put your fingers on this device anyway. And as far as typing is not an issue either. I used to have an issue where the keyboard was just too small for my liking, but over time the keyboard has become, bigger and just nice and clean and easy to use. And when you run into a game that is asking you to type something and you're like full screen into it and you can't reach your taskbar, you can make shortcuts. You can create a way to minimize that screen and see your taskbar and pull up the keyboard, and then you're fine. So there's workarounds for pretty much anything, and I haven't found a real reason to be like, damn, Windows doesn't work good on here. And I'm not going to feel that way even on the ROG Ally if I ever get one. The main thing is like, dang, I wish I had trackpads. I feel like Valve just thought about a lot of things before making this thing or in the process of making this thing. For example, the 4 back buttons, I'm not saying it's completely necessary, but the fact that they're there makes certain experiences so much better, even in terms of not being in a game, which is the main point of this video when it comes to Windows as a handheld, experience. Having extra buttons and extra things to help you navigate in OS is amazing. That's why I strongly feel like the Steam Deck is actually way better at doing Windows things than Windows devices are, meant to be, or things that are meant to be done on those certain devices that should be part of that experience. But maybe it's because I've been on it for a year. Maybe it's because I'm so used to it. But I do feel that people have misjudged. First off, they've misjudged the Steam Deck and its potential of being a good Windows handheld. I think that's been proven wrong at this point. My channel's like a perfect, testament to that. Like, it just doesn't show the negative side of Windows. And when I say hi, Fuego. Windows. Even putting the SteamOS overlay on my Windows 11 Steam Deck has proven that I don't really need SteamOS for anything. Like, I don't miss it. I don't feel like I care to have it on there. Sleep mode or quick resume, not an issue. Those things are present even on Windows. I'm curious for any of you Windows or Windeck users out there, what are some of your favorite things about having Windows on your Steam Deck, and what are some things you look forward to in a new Windows handheld? What are some things that you feel like are missing? Because right now, I don't feel like there's anything missing on the Steam Deck in terms of running Windows. I think it's a great experience all around. As for the ROG Ally, yes, this thing is going to be sold in stores, and yes, some people will be drawn towards it because it's on Windows, and some people that are already fans of like simpler systems will be drawn away from it because they'll feel like they won't understand it or something like that. But I think the appeal is there for new people to be able to see that thing and just be like, okay, that's a computer in the form of a Nintendo Switch, and that is interesting to me, so I want to check it out. And I feel like that contrast of, whoa, that's a computer on a handheld device is going to be way more impactful than seeing a custom OS on a new device that they can't really make the connection with. They're just going to be like, oh, that's another Nintendo Switch. It probably doesn't play, certain games, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how people's minds work. I'm just trying to see different perspectives of what people might think when seeing this thing in a store, especially if it's next to the laptop section or the desktop section versus being like next to the consoles. I think they can make that connection even easier. Do you guys think it's going to be kind of in the middle? You're just going to be walking down the Xbox and PlayStation section, and then halfway through you make it to the Switch, and then that's when it converts to handheld PCs, and then it goes to laptops, and then it goes to desktops. I don't know anything about store design or floor plans, or it makes sense to put this thing in front of people in the right way so that they make the connection of what they're getting themselves into, kind of. I don't know. It's really an exciting time if you're a fan of the Steam Deck or are looking into getting into PC gaming in general, because I'm sure this is going to be a great entry-level PC for a lot of people, just like the Steam Deck is for people that don't have all the money in the world to really get into PC gaming. I recommend them to go towards, something like the Steam Deck, because it's a start, and from there they can work their way up. That's kind of what I've done. Well, not really. I've had a PC for, years now, but in terms of upgrading, I'm more enticed about upgrading to a cooler handheld than I am about upgrading the internals of my PC or getting a new PC at this point, just because of how versatile a handheld PC can be. You can play it on a TV, you can play it on a monitor, you can take it with you, you can play it in your bed, you can play it in the bathroom, you can play it on the couch. Like, it's just, there's so much you can do with it, and that is the coolest part about it. So yeah, I think a lot of us are extremely excited and interested in the ROG Ally, and not just the system itself, but what it means moving forward for handheld PCs. You know what I mean? Because we started with the Steam Deck, and even though this thing is not sold in stores, it started a wave of like where this is headed, and it's great to see, and I know it's not going to die out anytime soon. I will probably address other topics related to handheld PCs and the ROG Ally and the Steam Deck and blah blah in a later video. But the main point I wanted to make in this video was really just about the trackpads. The trackpads, man, they're just so good, and I feel like a Windows device really benefits from having them. That's going to be all for this video. I hope you guys found something relatable in here, or if you have questions about anything or want to share your experiences on a Windows handheld, or if you're excited for the ROG Ally as well, let me know. If you like handheld gaming in general, if you want to see me play cool games on my Steam Deck or hear my takes on the up-and-coming, handhelds and things like that, stay tuned for more. I will catch you guys on the next video. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.